Hi, and welcome to week 4. These previous weeks, we kind of were looking at Disney and the pioneering that that company did, and now I want to show you what else was going on at the same time. We had some big competition, and you get to kind of see what you think and what you like better. So the Fleischer brothers, okay? Write these guys down. They are important. Max Fleischer, remember, he did the rotoscope. I have a little link here. It kind of goes over his life. Spoiler, we're going to look at that. But you can take a look kind of at all that Max did. He worked on a group of films called the Coco Song Cartoons. These started in 1924, and he developed 12 episodes in about 3 years, and these were created with sound on film. So let's take a look at some Max Fleischer cartoons. So the main thing I want you guys to think about with this is beginning in 1924. So, we're citing Steamboat Willie, and this one that I'm actually showing you is 1926. But sound was a thing, and this goes through the whole song. Here we go. All right, so the main thing here is sound was occurring, but what Disney did best and did first was have the animation and sound really paying attention to detail. It wasn't only that it was synced up, but they affected one another. They related to one another. And that kind of started a sound revolution with animation. Now, at this time, the Fleischer brothers were associated with Paramount, and they wanted to get further into sound. So Coco the Clown, which they had started earlier, became replaced with one called Talk Cartoons. Before we get into that, so Max and Dave was the one that wore the actual clown suit and was Coco the Clown for Dave to animate with. Here is a little bit of history on the brothers together. And once the Fleischer brothers came together, kind of, got their feet wet, they had done a couple different cartoon series, they became Disney's main competitors. And the main characters that they developed that were the most popular, and I would imagine you have heard of, are Betty Boop and Popeye. They were able to combine their interest in sound and realistic movement. Remember, they did the rotoscope, so they were able to get, people acting this out. So they had that kind of realism, whether you find it successful, little off-putting, it was still groundbreaking. And then they were able to take sound, learning from Disney's success and going on from there. So let's take a look at Betty Boop.
For just $67, you can make as many videos as you want, and you never need to pick up a camera.
So Betty Boop became so popular, she had her own cartoon series, Max Fleischer Presents. Directed by Dave. So quite the pair of siblings.
What's your name?
My name is Bimbo.
Can you sing, Bimbo? I will if you play for me. Okay. From old Halula, your dark and dreamy eyes, of paradise. You can let me make a monologue. Halula, calling you, you're my dear, my own.
Don't be scared, Bimbo.
Salam alaikum.
Musik!
You ain't seen nothing yet. Watch me. Oh, dear. Hurry up, Bimbo. you looking?
I'll fix that.
All right, so that kind of different rotoscoping, so we're getting realistic. I mean, you saw the actual dancers in the beginning, and that's what they used for the animation. Now, Bosco, who was in, Bimbo, who was in this cartoon as the love interest, Betty Boop was meant to originally just be the love interest of Bimbo. She wasn't meant to have her own cartoon, but she became so, popular and people wanted to see more, so then Betty Boop kind of stole the show and Bimbo became more of just the love interest. In the 1930s, take note of this, Betty Boop she was a dog. So she had long ears, a more dog-like nose and face, and then they realized, we think we want her to be more humanoid, and so they turned her long ears into big hoop earrings. And then she became her human form, and that's what stuck for her cartoon run. It was a musical novelty to see these interesting numbers danced out realistically, matching music perfectly, became very exciting for the audience. Sound helped reinvent animation. Max Fleischer's rotoscope was put to its most effective use in these early sound cartoons with these impressive dance sequences. And then they were used in a couple other ones as well. But then we have Popeye. So Popeye began as a comic strip, and then they decided Betty Boop, he would be in an episode of Betty Boop, and he became very, very popular and then took off on his own. He was in the episode called Betty Boop Presents Popeye the Sailor. Again, biggest hit. Popeye actually became a bigger star than Betty Boop. Even think movies and cartoons that are done recently in Popeye. He's still around. It became a very profitable and popular animated series in cinema history. Much of the success was due to the clever use of music. Sound cannot be overlooked for its ability to establish filmic atmosphere as well as character dimension. The other thing that Popeye had going for him was the voice actors that played him. Gus Wicke was Bluto, Mae Questrell as Olive Oyl, and Jack Mercer was Popeye. And they really made these characters, they made them somebody that an audience could relate to, an audience wanted to see what was going on. So we had sound, the acting, and the animation made this as successful as it was. Let's take a look. This is just a clip here. There we go. Max Fleischer, Paramount Productions, Max Fleischer. So with, Popeye and Betty Boop and all this, I want you to pay attention to the repetition of frames. So even in this A Dream Walking, we have, I'm going to turn the sound off, we have Olive Oyl as she walks to the frame, left, right, left, right. Now this had to be animated differently because she's coming towards the camera as well, but pay attention to things that are repeated. Again, this happened a lot in the Betty Boop as well. Of course, now we get more ads. But I take note, animators did this for a couple of reasons. One, it saved them time in animating, right? Because if you had, if it's 24 frames per second and you needed to do, 5 seconds of an action or whatever, if you did the frames and repeated them, you would only need to draw half of the frames, right? So let's see. Go here. See how they're going up and down? And she's even blinking at the same time. Okay, so they only had to draw that once, and then they were repeating it. Now, Bimbo's moves are changing, but these are repeated. So again, it saved time, which saved money. But what else it did was keep the characters alive, right? If we're watching this and all of these are just held still, nothing is happening, you'd be like, you'd hear the sound changing, but you would kind of be like, what happened? They're not breathing, they're not moving. So by repeating those frames, that's helps out again with time, money, and keeping characters alive. Okay, King of Mardi Gras. Popeye always had a little bit of humor, but then they realized, you know what, we could probably crank this up. Add some more exaggeration. Add, even look at this character position. So this is just a clip from the show, but so, Walter Lantz and Paul Terry. I know there are a lot of names here. Just keep little notes for yourself to keep them all straight. So Disney was focusing on storytelling and character development. The Fleischer brothers had more adult concepts and humor. So then Walter Lantz and Paul Terry tried to find that open gap. They created cruder characters with less challenging stories and kid-friendly themes. So remember when Disney left Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, Walter Lantz is who took it over. And this was in 1929. He had a very casual style, but he would also go back and forth on his techniques. So take a look at Chili Con Carmen. This is 1930. A Walter Lantz cartoon. Sorry, this is a little rough of a recording. All right, so I don't know what you thought of that, but some of the issues that Walter Lantz had was that he was trying to produce animations and cartoons quickly, and so a lot of times they struggled in consistency, or so in Chili Con Carmen, the cat and hippo are rivaling for Oswald's love, but then Oswald chooses the cat and the hippo doesn't really react. There were inconsistencies throughout Oswald or Walter Lantz's cartoons. It wasn't necessarily a failure, and Walter Lantz has said that the main thing he wanted to do with his cartoons was to make people laugh and make people happy, and he did that with his stories, even if there were some inconsistencies. Now, Walter Lantz, another part of his inconsistencies, and you're going to want to take note of this, was sound. Disney recorded the soundtracks first and animated to them. Fleischer animated first and then did the music to match the animations. Walter Lantz just did it willy-nilly. Sometimes he'd do the sound first, sometimes he'd do it after, and because there wasn't a consistent style, sometimes it's, his shows struggled. All right, so Paul Terry worked at the Lantz studio, but then he ended up leaving and created his own company. Then he came up with Terry Toons. Terry Toons is interesting, okay? It basically named items of food and set foods in their countries of origins. So here is the 1930s caviar. I need to also mention that it was originally released, but the only record of it is through this French theatrical print with German subtitles. There's very little talking, so it's not, but this cover isn't the original. All right. So now, Paul Terry, did...
For just $67, you can make as many videos.
Okay, too much. Terry didn't have the best staff working underneath him, and so he had some advantages to his cartoons, but the staff was a weakness. And the studio went years without getting new members, hiring any new employees or teaching the employees some principles of animation. They basically just left Terry to kind of fill in all the gaps and make up for any lack that the company had. Paul Terry, though, did not end here. We will talk about him a little bit more later. So, and here's kind of a sneak peek here. But here's a look at Terry Toons and some of the history behind it. So take a look at that. And then some popular things. So Deputy Dog, Mighty Mouse. So definitely more to come for Terry in the future. Now, Tex Avery, His name is Fred. Take note. Fred Tex Avery. But Tex is a name that you're going to want to know. He started working with Lance and quickly became a popular name. He was a very skilled animator. He was humorous and was able to bring a lot of humor into his animation. He could make animations fairly fast, and he kind of broke the fourth wall a lot. So had the cartoon characters talk to the audience, which is something that interacting with an audience, yeah, they kind of did when they were in early animations where there would be a human that would look at the audience, but it was different to have the animated characters. So a little bit on Tex here. And here's a nice video to look at Tex's animation style. This is kind of more of his famous clips. Before I get this started, let me talk about it for a second. So some more of his famous clips. One of his more famous ones was called The Zoo, and that was the first time the character broke the fourth wall. Again, having a character look directly into the camera. And this became a Tex Avery kind of staple with his animations. In it, he looked at the camera and said, well, imagine that. For our word of the week for the quiz, it's going to be Warner, as in Warner Brothers. All right, so let's take a look at Tex Avery.
Down the Mississippi steam the whippoorwill, commanded by the pilot, Mr. Steamboat Bill. The owner gave him orders on the strict duty to try to beat the record of the Robert E. Lee. Just heat up your engine, let the old smoke grow, burn up all the cargo if you run out of coal. If we don't beat that record, Billy told the mate, then we'll mail him care of Peter to the Golden Gate. Oh, Steamboat Bill, steaming down the Mississippi. Steamboat Bill, a mighty man was he. Steamboat Bill, steaming down the Mississippi, going to beat the record of the Robert E. Lee. Up stepped the gambling man from Louisville to try to get a bet on the whippoorwill. Bill flashed a roll that sure was a bear. The boiler, it exploded, threw them up in the air. The gambler said to Billy as they left the wreck, I don't know where we're going, but we're neck and neck. Said Bill to the gambler, tell you what I'll do. I'll bet another 1,000, I'll go higher than you. Oh, Steamboat Bill, he tore up the Mississippi. Steamboat Bill, the tide that made him swear. Steamboat Bill, he tore up the Mississippi. The explosion of the boiler got him up in the air. The river's all in mourning now for Steamboat Bill. No more you'll hear the popping of the whippoorwill. There's crape on every steamboat that plows those streams, from Memphis right to Nashville down to New Orleans. The wife of Mr. Williams was at home in bed when she got the telegram that Steamboat's dead. Said she to the children, bless him, honey lamb. Next papa that you have will be a railroad man. Oh, Steamboat Bill, missing on the Mississippi. Steamboat Bill, he's with an angel band. Steamboat Bill, missing on the Mississippi. He's a pilot on a ferry in the promised land. Steamboat Bill, missing on the Mississippi. Steamboat Bill, he's with an angel band. Steamboat Bill, missing on the Mississippi. He's a pilot on a ferry in the promised land.
Also, just note, these are not the songs that go along. They just put these clips together and added the songs on top. also try to take a look and just based on the animations that we've seen so far, what do you see happening here? What are the movements looking like? Are they more fluid? Are they less fluid? Are they more repeated, less repeated? You know, are they using the principles better here? So, you know, we're going to have a discussion this week, but try to take note while you're watching. All right, and if you want to watch the rest, there's only a few minutes left, but we will be talking about Tex Avery again. I just wanted you to be aware, you know, he was working with Lance for a little bit here. Now we're going to look at early Warner Brothers. So remember I kept saying Bosco earlier. My mind was set for this. So this is Bosco the Talk Ink Kid. I actually really liked how the YouTube video wrote it. So this is from the YouTube clip. But again, Disney lost control of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And George Winkler, the producer, hired away several of Disney's animators to continue producing the Oswald cartoons for Universal Studios. Hugh Harman, Rudolph Ising, and Frez Freleng. So these are some names you're going to want to write down. And more, but these first three we're going to take a closer look at. Universal later chose to produce the Oswald series using its own in-house animators headed by Walter Lantz. And remember, that's Lantz Studios. Unemployed animators decided to produce their own cartoons and made Bosco. So the Talking Kid is a demonstration to show distributors. Rudolph Ising appeared on screen as himself in the short, and Carmen Maxwell performed the voice of Bosco. Harman and Ising shot for a distributor were turned down by both Paramount and Universal. You know, sometimes when you're like trying to find a job or something and you get turned down and it's so frustrating, but then you look back in history and see how many people were turned down and then the cool things that they came up with anyways. Anyway, so they took Bosco and used his connections with Warner Brothers to get a distribution deal for a cartoon series, Harmon and Ising later named Looney Tunes, right? So we had Silly Symphonies and Looney Tunes. You know, sometimes people think it's tunes, T-O-O, like cartoons, but it's tunes, like music tunes. So again, early 1930, they opened a studio. Warner Brothers wanted Bosco, which we'll take a look at first here, just Bosco. But Warner Brothers, since they took on this cartoon, they wanted to make sure that they were promoting music from the Warner Brother Music Publishing catalog. So it was kind of like a win-win for them. So they named it Looney Tunes. So let's look at Bosco and the Talk Inc. Kid. Produced by Hugh Harmon and Rudolph Ising.
Well, here I is, and I sure feel good. Oh, you feel good, do you? Yeah, I'm just out of the pen. All right, now that you're here, what can you do? What can I do? Boss, what I can't do ain't. Well, who are you? Who is I? I'm Bosco. That's who I ain't. Nobody else except Bud. Bosco, eh? All right, Bosco, show me what you can do. Okay, boss. What's this here? Who's all them folks out there in the yard?
Why, the audience, Bosco. Can you make them laugh?
Piano?
Yeah, here you are.
Right there. Ain't that a heck of a move? When there is great God. I don't mind the great God. I still have you, Sonny Boy. Oh, where's that at?
long, folks. See y'all later.
All right, so that was to try to get a distributor, and again, they were successful with that. And then this one is 2 years later. Let's take a look. Adding music. Who and Rudolph musical cartoon, a Looney Tune. Now, Looney Tunes here featured Bosco. That was a huge thing at first. This isn't the Looney Tunes that you might be more familiar with. Excuse me. All right. So again, Hugh and Rudolph sound cartoon. This was rivaling Disney, right? There were some workers that had worked for Disney that came over to work there, so there was some kind of cross action. But the use of music and how they were using the principles and storylines really helped them. So here's one more. Oops.
Setting up our Squarespace online store was really...
And this one's You're Too Careless with Your Kisses. You can see Warner Brothers Pictures, Hugh and Rudolph Production, Merry Melodies. So, Merry Melodies was kind of their branch off. So Bosco quickly became popular, so much so that they wanted a second cartoon series. So they titled it Merry Melodies. The new shorts made music even more central than before, if that was possible. Looney Tunes used their tunes as backup scores, but each melody was to show characters singing a chorus on screen. Okay? So characters like Bosco, there were some foxes, had adventures that just happened to stop for a song. Okay, so this became like a very interesting, kind of a new way of cartoons to incorporate the songs further. So here we go.
gee, I wonder why I love the one I should condemn. You're too careless with your kisses that I want from you. They tell me I'm crazy, but I'm not much. And now you're in the hands of the D.O. Maestro.
Sorry, that was a key point. All right, so long, folks begins there. And note Merry Melody, Hugh, and Rudolph. All right. So really, their main goal, and take note of this, their main goal was to experiment and to grow. That's what they wanted more than anything else, to experiment and to grow. Ultimately, the Bosco-style Looney Tunes would end by 1934. Harmon and Ising would move on to MGM Studios. We will get onto more of that later. Then this week you have a discussion board. Make sure that you make your initial post by Wednesday at midnight and comment on your classmates' post by Sunday. You must comment on your classmates' post to receive full credit, and I'm really looking to grow the discussion. Imagine if this were in class and we were watching all of these movies. We would talk about them, see what you think. This is a great way to look back on our first 4 weeks, kind of including this one. And then you have your week 4 quiz. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and I look forward to seeing your discussions.